Welcome boys and girls to the first video related to my new channel, A Song for a Layman. Now, as I said, this series will hope to touch on a variety of issues, both international and more domestic topics. And I was just thinking that today we could discuss some of the problems associated with the housing crisis in Ireland. What is it? Who does it affect? Who benefits from it? And what can we fucking do to fix it?
You know I prefer to be involved in jobs. Are we agreed? I will arrange for it to be left. A good move. The time for action.
Now, Grant.
Okay, folks.
But before I get into the bulk of the topic, we're gonna strip down some
Straight cash in. You know how it goes.
Okay, why the fuck are they really loud, man? They're hurting my fucking ears. Anyway, as I was saying, before we get into the bulk of this topic,
guys.
we have...
Wait here. You go on ahead.
Time to break a little back.
Before we get into the bulk of the topic, we have to strip back some layers.
I don't think I saw anything.
We have to... That's Jiro there making noise. Jiro, calm down, right? Settle down, lad. Settle down. But anyways, probably going to start by looking at how it all came to be, the housing crisis. And how do we end up at a point where first-time buyers of homes are being priced out of the market? Like,
okay, great. I've got that thing to the vault door.
You first have to look at the year. We have to go back as far as 2007, alright? And it was maybe towards... more so towards the... realistically, I'd say more so towards the November side of 2007, where you had a lot of people predicting that the housing bubble in North America was going to burst. And it was at this point that people like all around the world are starting to go, oh fuck, there's serious issue and shit's about to hit the fan.
It's hard to say.
I'm not mainly sure. For North America in order over and here, Europe.
Over.
But you see, we can look back further and go back to around, I'd say, 2000, and there was a report written by a man named Schiller who had actually discussed the housing bubble in the year 2000. And bear in mind, this is something that wouldn't happen until 2008, until it was in full swing. So you kind of have to wonder then, like, what was said that wasn't taken on board. And you see, it was at the time that the banks were just like in denial about the facts that housing could like fail. They were so up their own arse that like they were resenting the fact that like housing would fail. It's housing is this glorious investment that will always be perfect no matter what. It will never fail. And you see, he was ignored for that though, because you know, it's like banks don't want to listen to that shit. But if we come back to 2008, the recession is starting to be felt in Ireland. And what you have then is like all these construction firms who were building projects, like, you know, they were doing the private housing, they were making private housing, social housing, and a load of infrastructure just for Ireland in general. And what ended up happening was like this just wasn't going ahead anymore. Because you know, there was no money to pay for all these construction firms, so all these boys were just let off the job, or they fucked off elsewhere to look for work. So like Canada and Australia was the big two employers of a lot of Irish people. And you see, what this is like, this up until now, it's just a vaguely detailed explanation about. It could have been elaborated further. But seeing as it's the first video, I didn't feel like it needed that much of an intro. I just said, look, I'll give it a quick skim kind of over and like just see if what happens.
Alright!
If we get the turnout we're expecting for this video and other videos, we'll we might go back to it in a later video, but let's return to like just the Irish context about it anyways. But now that we're starting to look a bit more economically stable, you have some firms returning to Ireland, and they're bringing back all these workers with them.
Sometimes I just see things,
But
not to alarm you.
what happens is prices for houses at the moment are more or less staying the same or getting more expensive, while there isn't a lot of infrastructure for newer houses. There isn't a lot of social houses being built. There isn't private, like there's not a whole lot of private houses being built. And as far as just buildings in general, like supermarkets, malls, there isn't a whole lot of it going on. And the reason for that is just we're good. Economically speaking, we're good. We're not perfect. And we're just getting better. We're just getting better, but we're not going to go overboard. And you know, there's not a lot of new houses being made, and the reason for that is most of the boys who fucked off to Australia and Canada, some have returned with the intention of coming back home to Ireland to work. A lot of them, though, according to the OECD reports, and for those who don't know, the OECD is the Organisation for Economic Cooperation and Development. According to the reports, the majority of people that fucked off are better off where they are, and that's just fact. So imagine like you fucked off, right? And you're away with it. Right? You're going to Australia, Canada, and find out, look, there's some jobs back home. But do you want to return home? Like you go back there, say at that time for a visitor, and but you're quite happy and contented and living up in Australia, like so. Would you return? I mean, they didn't, and I mean, I suppose they're not in the wrong though.
Fucking smell! On the ground, people! Stay down,
They were
everybody!
here, just like Wick said. Tie him up and leave him by the van. Wick will take care of the scum when we get back.
But anyways, the sad reality in relation to the Irish situation is a lot of people are dependent on social funded housing. And I'd say you could look at that in a broader term and like say a lot of people worldwide are kind of they kind of need it, but we're looking purely at the Irish context just for now.
I don't like these radios. They're
And
just no goddamn good.
one post I read in particular before, as I was writing this piece, by the name of John Spain, and he was talking about how we could resolve the issue by funding more private housing to accommodate those in need of housing. Just those who need, like, just I had to read it a few times just to make heads or tails of what he was actually saying. And from the way I was reading it now, I could be wrong, but from the way I was reading it, he was saying that by firms coming in and building private housing, we can fix, like, they're building private housing, so we're assuming, right, you know, like, a firm is being paid to make private housing, so we're in a state of 100 houses, let's say, right, so boys being paid to make an estate of 100 houses, and like families going to be putting them, and that's all well and good, but these families aren't looking for private houses. These are families that are simply looking for social housing. They just need something to keep them going, you know. They're not looking for fucking private houses. And anyways, he was saying that this will work, this will be fine. Now I didn't look into John Spain's background or anything. I just I looked at it now. He was writing a post on how we could fix the situation, but I don't think
On the ground!
Massacre here?
sorry about that now, I just had to go quiet there for a second because I was just making sure I didn't do anything wrong. Yeah, he was saying that, you know, how do we fix social housing? Build private houses. I was reading it and I was like, fucking no. You don't do that. Let's just take the example, right? That contractor comes in, right?
Nice. I'll start her up.
And this company's agreed to make 100 of these
Here we
houses.
go. We should be
They
through in
have
a couple of
3
minutes.
bathrooms, 3 to 4 bathrooms, 3 to 4 bedrooms, right? That's all well and good for a family That's a one win good for a parent, two parents that both working decent jobs and have kids with them, right? That's fine. What about a family, a young couple, right? Both, let's say, 26, 27 years of age, maybe older, right? Fresh out of college, right? Like, this is the best case scenario now. Fresh out of college, and say now your man's 27, he's 3 years off being a senior member in an accountancy firm. Your one's 28, and she's a few months off being a senior member in the same accountancy firm, right? What happens? Like, they're both going to be senior members of a job, an occupation that does pay fairly well. The problem with that, though, is they're not yet. They'll be still a couple of years down the line trying to pay off that, right? Essentially, they get roped into this mortgage type deal. They'll be given a house for a certain amount of time, right, while they're waiting for other housing. But then, like, why would you downgrade? Like, if you have this private house, 3 or 4 bedrooms, and then, like, a few years later, social housing gets made, are you going to say, alright, fucking pack it in, we don't want this house no more, let's leave another family move in here, we're going to fuck off maybe another, we're going to fuck off closer out of town, we're going to more into the suburbs, to this social housing area that was, this is what we were looking for 2 years ago, but now we don't care anymore. No one's going to do that. And if we take the other side of the coin, where we have a young couple again, you have a fella or girl, like, that's the first thing that comes to my head. It could be 2 fellas, 2 women, it doesn't matter to fuck, right? It is what it is. You have these, we're just going to assume it's a heterosexual relationship. It's a male and female. Why did I nearly say mother? It's a male and female, right? And they're one's working in Dunn's, the other's working in, like, the shop down the road or something. They're fresh out of college and they're still holding on to those part-time jobs they've had for the last few months, right? Because they're still looking for employment, and they get this kind of, like, this house, and they're kind of like, they're showing all their friends, like, look at the size of our fucking house, and then the boys are all like, you work in fucking Dunn's and she works down the road, like, what's happening? The thing is, they get roped into this thing then where it's like, they'll be paying off that house years down the road. If they hold on to it, they'll be fucking paying that for years, decades, and if they don't get the jobs they want, then unfortunately that's just the reality of the situation, where the bank will probably come in and say, like, even though this isn't your proper house, you were put in here, but you can't meet payments, get the fuck out. And you're kind of like, what the fuck? But anyways, the problem I was thinking of, though, as well, and aside that, is what happens with big projects like this issued by the government is it goes out to tender, and what that means essentially is you might have, like, we're just going to assume, like, Leo Varadkar, right? He's in a group chat, like, it's not Leo Varadkar, don't worry about it. I'm just trying to, like, as the title of my channel implies, right? As the title of my channel implies, we're gonna digress for a minute, right? As the title of my channel implies, it's a song for a layman. Now, a layman would be someone who isn't particularly zoned in one area. For instance, you can look it up yourself, but that's just a vague description of the word layman. And, like, my channel is, all it does, it like condenses, all I'm hoping to do is condense all this high tier just jargon and summarize it essentially, so that the average person, like, just someone who's interested in this topic but doesn't fully grasp the whole situation, or someone who is interested and they just want to hear my spin on it, right, they can listen, and it's all, well and good. I'm not making things complicated, I'm just kind of easing it down to its basic structure.
Back the money.
And what,
Alright, bring it to the van. It's right
like,
across the street.
some people will ask, Connor, you haven't a fucking clue, you're only a young fella, just stick to playing your games. Like, I mean,
Don't forget about those safe
you know what?
deposit boxes, folks.
You're-
There'll be good stuff in there.
you're well entitled to your own opinion, right? I might not be a fucking economist or a politician, but what I can do is I can read articles. I have the ability to read, and I have the ability to then transfer that knowledge into actual, you know, what the fuck does this mean? And that is what I've done in order to put this piece together. I read a load of articles all relating to the, you know, the housing crisis in Ireland. So for anyone that wants to like live in this world where they don't appreciate what someone else is trying to do, what they can do is they can go and listen to a fucking rally by Donald Trump and close their eyes and pretend they're an American.
Come along now.
With the conservative ideals that you'd expect to find in a lot of Southern Republicans, and that's what they can do. But look, you see, the cause-effect relationship comes from the fact of landlords in high density urban environments like Dublin.
Come along now.
You know, areas that are sought after.
Come along
and what
now.
happens is there was a lot of attention a few weeks back
Come
on
along now.
landlords in these areas for like.
Come on.
Everyone likes to make a profit. Everyone likes to make a tidy profit.
Come along
I actually
now.
think it's kind of ironic that I've decided to make this video
Come with me. Move it.
mention like almost corrupt landlords, as we're going to put it now in a sec. How we describe them will be. I don't think a lot of landlords would appreciate it. Like saying, I'm not saying all landlords do it, but there was definitely attention a few weeks back on a few landlords
Come on. Come on.
trying to get the. I'd say most people would
Come
have heard
on
about
now.
it. You get these young couples coming in, students or whatever. You give them, you know, a place to stay, a roof over their head. Bear in mind, that's all they look for: a roof over their head. They'd be happy out. And you have landlords that will take a deposit off you, right? And then what will happen is, you know, they might request more money. They might go, look, you really want this house? Another 150 quid. Do you know, and that's like off the books. You're not getting that back. You might get your deposit back if you can prove that you haven't fucked the sitting room or the kitchen or whatever. But
That's it. Let them piss their pants while we do our thing at the bank.
like a lot of landlords, I just don't like the idea of landlords. I really just like, I know there's policies in Ireland that kind of in recent times has tried to kind of like reduce the amount
Get
of
down on
fucking
the
like
ground. Get down.
power landlords have, but I don't think it does a whole lot. Like, I know they kind of like got bad at it for a while.
Okay, we can leave now. But
But
try
I
and
mean-
take it all if you can.
Fuck landlords. Just fuck them. I don't like them. Now, I think we might have got off topic a small bit. We're going talking about the housing crisis, but as I said, we just give a vague kind of overview of it at the moment. Realistically, who profits from fucking the housing crisis itself? It's just wealthy people that have a lot of properties in their pocket. You can't really go wrong if you have a lot of properties in
Down
your
on the
pocket
ground.
and
Down.
you're wealthy enough
And
to
stay
own
down.
like 6, 7 like condominium complexes. You can essentially racketeer land. You can run a monopoly on land in the area you're living in, and there'll be nothing to stop you. I mean, that's just that, boys and girls. That, I'd say, concludes our video on the Irish crisis, the Irish housing crisis. If you liked the video, please feel free to leave a like. Maybe give your thoughts in the comment section. If you liked this idea of a channel that I've come up with, please do feel free to subscribe. Tell your friends, share it around. You know, get us a bit of attention. I would appreciate anything. Like the video, dislike. There's no such thing as bad publicity. I see it all as a review. I see it all as, you know, constructive feedback. So please feel free.